Hi everyone, Scotch182 here, and welcome to WION Reviews, which stands for Worth It or Not, where I am going to answer the simple question: is The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski, he's Polish, I can't pronounce his name, worth it or not? And for those who don't know what this is, let me give a quick story. This is one of the books that inspired the Witcher games that was made by CD Projekts, The Witcher 1 and The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings. I have reviewed the Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings, and the review is up on my channel if you want to go and check it out. And after playing it, well, shortly before I got the game, I actually picked this up. I got it off Amazon for about, I think it was like £5–6, so it wasn't too expensive. It was actually reasonably cheap. And I did plan on finishing this book before I played the game, but due to timing schedule and a lot of other things that came up, I wasn't able to finish it before I got the game. I just recently finished it. I finished it about last week. I was planning on reviewing it last week, but I just didn't have the time. I do apologise for that. But I finished it last week, and I'm going to give you my honest review. This is probably going to be a really short WION review. If you haven't seen any of my other WION reviews, here's the simple gist of it. I'm going to judge this, is it worth the money that I paid for, and should you buy it? And I'm going to be judging it as a novel first, and then I'm going to judge it as a, should you read this before you play the Witcher games, or should you read this at all if you've even played the Witcher games? So firstly, let me explain how this book is structured. The book is structured in short stories. This is not a novel. This is a collection of short stories with the main character of the Witcher games, Geralt of Rivia. And it really is, I think this is the first book. I could be wrong. Not all the books have been translated into English. Only 2 or 3, I think, have, and I've still got to get the second one. But this is basically a collection of short stories starring Geralt of Rivia, as he basically does his job as a Witcher. And for those who don't know what a Witcher is, he's basically a monster hunter who has been mutated. I think it's magically. I'm not as familiar with the Witcher universe as I would like to be. I do need to read up on it a bit more. But if you played the game, you know that. He's a monster hunter, basically. He gets paid to kill monsters left, right, and centre. And he's been mutated in such a way that he is stronger, faster, and heals a lot quicker than the average human. He also has certain potions that enhance his abilities. But I don't want to explain the whole universe. But this is basically his tale. It's given a wee bit of his backstory, a good chunk of his backstory, about why he became a Witcher in some senses, and also characters that he met along the way, basically giving you a little justification of his character. And the short stories are, they vary in length. Some short stories are only a page or 2 long, some short stories are about 20, in 1 or 2 cases I think there's a 30 to 40 page short story. And really, you can read any short story in this and not have to read any of the others. But if you did it like me, which is basically read it from start to finish, which I recommend you do, each story sort of connects in a way. The way that the author, Andrezej, if any of my Polish subscribers are out there, please let me know if I'm pronouncing that right. If not, I apologise for butchering his name. But each story does connect in a way, but they also stand out on their own, which in my sign is a good sign of a good author. You don't need to read every single short story, but it helps if you do. That's why I like a lot of stories that are like the Percy Jackson series. I like that series because you can read every single book of there on its own. It stands well on its own. And the same with these short stories. I'm calling him Andra. I'll call him. I'm sorry, I cannot. I'm horrible for pronouncing names, but I think he's a good writer from what I've seen. The way that it's written is very well done. It's written in. I'm trying to think what the term is. I think it's written in from the viewpoint of Geralt. So it's. I think that's first person. I could be wrong. English was my worst subject. But the stories, it's written in his. So he's telling you his story, and he goes through his tales. And as I was saying, the short stories are written in such a way that you don't need to read every single short story in here, but it helps if you do. And that's what I think is a good sign of a good author, is that you don't need to read every single book he's ever written, but if you pick up one of his, you'll enjoy it. And I like the way that this is written, I like the way it's structured. If you're like me, which is, if you get a book like, 2 secs, I'll grab it, I've got this book out here. If you get a book like this, which is like fucking massive, like, I find these books intimidating, mainly because I'm a slow reader. Hence why this review is taking so long. But books like this intimidate me. because of the length of them and the complexity of them in some cases. I'm not reviewing this anytime soon because it's not game related. I'm not too sure. I've not read it in a while. But what I think Andrezej does well is that he does writes the short stories well, that he makes you want to read them. That's what I think is really well done. And for someone like me who gets intimidated by big books and who is a slow reader, I felt comfortable reading this. I didn't feel intimidated in any of the slightest. I could finish one short story, put it down, come back a couple of days later, read the next short story, put it down, come back a couple of days later, put down another short story, come back, and it worked for me. That's the way I like to read. Normally I'll read a chapter or two. Normally, like with a book like this, I'll read a chapter, put it down, come back the next day, read another chapter. Unless I get really engrossed in the story, in which case I'll probably read 2 chapters a day. Because if I try and read any more than 2 chapters a day, I get bored of it. I need to keep myself fresh when I'm reading the stories. But with the way that the author's done this, I'm going to call him the author, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name again. He does write the stories in a way that it makes me want to read the full stories. It makes me want to read the full short stories. And when I finish one, I feel accomplished. I just finished a short story. That's really, really good. And I put it down and I go away a couple of days, come back and read the next short story. And then when you get to the final short story, you feel a lot of reward. You read a fuck ton of short stories. Just for me personally, as I said, I find really thick books and books that a lot of people say are fantastic, intimidating, because it took me 3 months to read this book. This took me a lot longer because time and everything, a lot of stuff came up. But yeah, as I said, if you're like me and you find big books intimidating, this is a simple one to pick up and read. I think this is one of the few books that I could probably just go, you know what, I'm feeling like a short story of the day, just pick up one of the short stories and read it. It's very well done. I like that. So as a novel, it's really well done. Like, it's not really a full novel, it's a collection of short stories. But as a collection of short stories, they're enjoyable, they're really good to read. There are some cases where the translation, I think, got mucked up a wee bit. Not in a lot of senses. The way certain sentences are worded, it does seem like they might have got mixed up in translation, but not very noticeably. Like, 1 or 2 I was like, did they write that right? And then after I had to go back and read that certain part, like, oh, but now I get it, because some of the sentences are a wee bit iffy. But otherwise, the whole story is very well, so it's a good translation. So as a novel, I'd say this is a book that as a novel / collection of short stories, I'd say anyone could really pick this up and just go, well, let's have a quick read. Read one short story, done, put it away, and come back another time. And that's what I like about it. It's really good. Really good. The way that it's structured as well. I love that. I love the way it's structured. And it's definitely a really good fantasy novel. Collection of fantasy short stories as well. I like that. I like fantasy. I like magic. I like all those things like elves and all that. And you get a good sense of the universe of The Witcher, which is awesome. You learn a lot more about the Witcher universe than you would in the games, for instance. But let's get to that. So as a novel, I'd say it's worth it. Just pick it up. It's about £5–10. I'll leave a link in the description to Amazon. £5–10. I don't know how that equates in dollars. I think it's probably like maybe $10. But yeah, definitely worth a pickup as a collection of short stories / novel. And now, let's get to the one I was like, should you read this if you've played The Witcher 1 or with The Witcher 2? Or you're planning on doing it. As I say, The Witcher, I've not played The Witcher 1, I do intend to play that eventually, but The Witcher 2, I can honestly say you don't really need to read the novels to understand the universe, because The Witcher 2 does it absolutely excellently in giving you an outline of the world. Like, it gives you what you need to know, and then some. Like, if you read all the entries and all that, you'll learn so much about the universe, and also the character of Geralt of Rivia. You also learn about his past and all that. Of course, in the game, they don't go into too much, because they want to save a lot of shit for The Witcher 3. So, yeah, you don't get everything you want to know about Geralt, but you get enough in the game, in my opinion. You get a lot of information about the characters in there. If you want to know more about Geralt of Rivia and other characters, like, does Triss make an appearance in this novel? No, Triss doesn't. I don't think Triss appears in this novel, as there's any of the short stories here. It's the character Yennefer that is in this novel, in the last story, and she does mention Triss Marigold, who Triss Marigold is one of my favourite characters. I'm going to get the next book and review that as well, but if you've any interest in the Witcher games and you've played them, I'd say it's worth it to pick up this book to actually learn more about the Witcher universe, because it's a really interesting universe. As I say, right now I'm actually reading The Hobbit, and I'm enjoying that. I like fantasy stories. But I actually think this universe is a little bit more interesting than the Lord of the Rings universe for me anyway. I've not read the Lord of the Rings novels. As I said, I'm judging it on what I've read of The Hobbit so far. I'm not that far in here, but I'm actually liking this universe a little bit better than the Lord of the Rings universe. But as I said, the Lord of the Rings universe, if the Lord of the Rings universe wasn't here, this universe probably wouldn't be here. Because a lot of fantasy stories are, a lot of fantasy authors owe their inspiration to the Lord of the Rings, and there are subtle hints, in my opinion, when you get to the certain parts that hint towards the Lord of the Rings, like certain wee bits and bobs, but not like a blatant rip-off. But I actually find this universe a bit more interesting than the Lord of the Rings universe. Just coming from the movies, if I'm going to be honest. I'm going to read the books eventually. If I like The Hobbit enough, I will read the rest of the Lord of the Rings films. Read the films, yeah, I'm going to read the script, the books. But I actually enjoyed this a little bit. As I said, I did try and read The Lord of the Rings at one point, but I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't get into the stories. But I had no problem with this. I actually enjoyed this a lot more than what I've read of The Lord of the Rings. I made it about a quarter of the way through the Fellowship, and then I was like, oh, fuck off. No offense to Tolkien or anything. As I said, I'm enjoying The Hobbit. But yeah, I'd say if you're a fan of the Witcher series, the games, definitely pick this up. It's really interesting to learn more about the universe and more about the character of Geralt of Rivia. You learn so much about his character in this. You learn a lot in the games, but you learn a lot more if you read the books. And that's why I think CD Projekt succeeded as well. You don't need to read the books to play the games, but you do. You get a little bonus if you do. So definitely, if you can, pick this up if you're a fan of the Witcher books. If you're a fan of the Witcher games, it's definitely a must-read. But if you want a really interesting fantasy story, if you're not into games, and you want a really interesting set of fantasy short stories or a fantasy universe, I would say this is really worth it. This is actually a really interesting thing. And I do know that there was a Witcher TV series in Poland. I heard it was really bad. I haven't seen it, and I probably got to check it out. But yeah, I could definitely see this, as I said, the games are where this is evolved in, and this is really a lot more information than you really need to play the games, but you learn a lot. And for me personally, I'm a lore whore. I love reading up on lore when I'm playing games, and if there's further source material like novels or comic books or whatever, I'll pick them up because I want to learn more about the universe that I'm playing, which I enjoy. So if you're like me and you're a lore whore, I'd say if you're like me, you like the Witcher book, you would like the Witcher game, The Witcher 2, and you're a lore whore, definitely pick this up because this is really good. It's a really good read. I liked it. I enjoyed it. If you're not into the fantasy genre, I would definitely say don't pick this up because it does rely a bit heavily on fantasy as it is a fantasy novel. But yeah, definitely if you're a fan of fantasy, if you're a fan of the Witcher games, it's definitely I think this is a must read if you're a fan of fantasy because it's, as it says, I find it really hard to read books because I'm a slow ass reader. And also the book really has to grip me, otherwise I'll just go, fuck it. Like the Harry Potter books, I tried reading the Harry Potter books, I didn't like them. I got about halfway through the first book and I went, fuck this, I didn't like it. And before I'm fucking castrate me for saying something bad about Harry Potter, I didn't like the movies either. But yeah, as it says, I found this, as it says, this author did a really good job in drawing me into the story of each short story, which is really well done, and it makes me want to go and get the next book, and I'm going to get the next book as well, so don't worry about that. But definitely, if you're a fan of fantasy, if you're a fan of the Witcher games, this is a must-read in my opinion, because it's a really good book, a really, really nice read, and you don't feel intimidated with books like this. So definitely, if you can, pick this up. It's about £5-6 on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description. And that's about it for my WION review. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully if some of you, let me know if any of you picked this up, and let me know if you enjoyed it and put it in the comment section down below, or if you've already read it, let me know your thoughts on The Witcher, on this book. Let me know your thoughts on it. And as always, I'm Scottish Warren 92, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you all later. Ciao for now. Mwah.